Excited to have Arturo Suarez Martin joining us today on our podcast. He is the Senior Director of Customer Success and General Manager at PagerDuty Chile. He has driven innovation and scaled that Chilean team to over 100 employees, and he's just an awesome guy, so I'm excited to talk to him today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Scott. Excited.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, you've worked with a lot of great companies. You've had a great career so far. With every job, I found that, some days can be harder, some days can be easier. And I think we all need to find inspiration for the work that we do. What are some of the places that you find inspiration? How do you get excited about what you're working on?
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to travel a lot for work, and prior to that, lived in a few countries and travel, right? So it's when you travel in a specific way, when you get to know people the way they are at home, you move out of the kind of mainstream hotel, etc. life, that you get to know the reality of life in other parts of the world, and then gives you the opportunity to compare, right? So some of the things that are inspiring when you do that is you start looking at folks or meeting folks around the globe that have very similar challenges than what you have, very similar challenges that what you're looking to solve in your professional environment, right? And they're tackling those with different perspectives based on their culture, based on their background, based on all of that. So the fact that you get, in different parts of the world, kind of the same or similar problem attacked from different angles, trying to be solved from different angles, that inspires from a professional standpoint. Okay, I want to fix this, and I know what other folks feel about it, what other folks have experienced with this particular challenge or this particular problem, and it's global, right? So that is inspiring, right? Find inspiration in, again, being out there, talking to people, and noticing their, how professional problems might affect their personal lives, or might, give them an extra benefit on anything, right?
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think just getting outside of our normal workspace too, for some reason, it's like when you go to the same place every day, you follow the same path. Your ideas are not that much different sometimes.
It is. You get into this kind of the groundhog day, right? It's the same thing. Same
Yeah.
people, the same kind of problems, and you get numb by the fact that this is always the same. You have experienced that already yesterday, right? So just shaking a little bit and getting different inputs, and again, the more different, the better, in my opinion, right? That's what gives you kind of the breadth of the perception of what's going on in the world, right?
Is there like a place that you remember visiting or walking into, or I don't know, landing in a city and driving around where you felt like, whoa, just completely, breath taken?
Yeah, there's a few. Every time you get into a place where you cannot blend, right? So, for me, it'd be places like Tokyo, right, where it's so different than everything else, and then you cannot blend because you just stand out because of obvious features, right? That would be one of the ones that was like a whoa, because you read about it, but yeah, basically it's a different experience, the way everything works, right? It's a nice feeling, and a lot to learn from those type of places, right? The attention to detail, that everything kind of cautiously measured, so things work. It's a great society. Tokyo would be a place where I found that experience.
Yeah, I think that's a terrific example. So I actually I spent 4 or 5 years when I was a young boy living there in Tokyo, from like 5 to 8 years old. And one of the things that really my dad felt like he was working there, he always reminded me, is he was 6'1", just much taller than everybody around him. And he felt like people always came up and approached him and sort of asked, like, what are you doing here? And he felt both out of place, but he also felt very welcome, kind of like you mentioned, which is
really that's kind of, not that I particularly like. I like when I just can blend and can just do my thing and just live and not kind of driving attention. But but in some cases, you can't help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, I don't know if you initially, when you started your career, you thought, I absolutely want to be, head of customer success at PagerDuty, or if there was like sort of some steps along the way, but like, where did you get started, and then what kind of like guided you to where you are today?
Yeah, a lot of steps. I ended up here just by, I guess, a happy accident, or however you wanna call it. So I started, again, I'm gonna date myself here, but this is back in the internet, like web 1.0 era, right? When if you had a degree in science and you could turn on a computer, you would actually automatically be hired as a developer of some sort, and people will train you and whatnot, right? So I started off as a developer. It's a good thing that I moved out, because I was probably not going to be a good developer down the road, and due to the fact that I could speak languages and whatnot, I ended up kind of transitioning to the business side. My trade would have had most success is in product, right? So you get this technical background, and then you start applying to, okay, how do you translate technical innovation into something people can consume, right? And after product, you started building services around it, and motions and businesses that can be there. Catalyst to adoption of those products and to all those things, right? The fact that I ended up in the post-sales world, customer success, customer support, was just a happy accident, and the transition from my company I was working at was acquired by PagerDuty 4 years and change ago, and ended up having this role. Everything I've done to that point just gave me all the skills that I need to be able to do my job well, right? Having been a consultant, having been a customer, I was actually a customer of PagerDuty's 2 or 3 companies ago, and that background, that those skills, those competencies that you gain through being part of different parts of the software process, is what gives me a little bit of an edge, right? Because I know how the sausage is made, I know how customers are consuming it. Just putting those 2 things together, so it's a nice bridge between our users and our product teams and our engineering teams. Customer success is the right place for me, but it was all an accident, right?
Yeah, I think the idea of a happy accident, to hear you say it, I think a lot of people probably would think, man, this guy, he has it totally figured out. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Wish, that's a wish, right? It never happens like that. No matter how much you plan. Again, it is me coming from my training in unplanned work in customer support. You can plan, everything you want, right? Things still going to happen, issues are still going to happen, outages are still going to happen. So it's just how you respond and how you take those opportunities, how you respond to those things, right? So, but yeah, this is you kind of your horizon of planning gets shorter as you grow older as well, right? So, 20 years ago, I wanted to be whatever, and I had all my career planned. But then as you get there and life takes you in different directions, then you start like, okay, this is what I'm going to do this year, right? This is what I'm going to try to be effective, and which is a good thing as well, right?
For the roles you've had when it comes to customer support success, are there particular areas that you mentioned having started with some technical expertise, product innovation? Are there things where you say, it's incredibly helpful for me to have been a developer to understand how to read documentation, and so I know how to write it? What are some of those things that come to mind for you that are maybe super important?
Yeah, some of the as I said, I've lived through the big paradigm shifts, right? So the 1.0, 2.0, and phone and whatnot, and now AI, cloud, all of that, right? And there's a pattern. The more curious you are, the more you know about how it's done, right? Don't be a user. Just move to participate in the making of it, in the process of understanding how it's done. That's what gives you the edge, and helps you filter noise to signal, and helps you understand like what are the different motions that you're gonna get. So in general is participate in how things are done, like deeply, right? Just scratch the surface, don't take any black boxes, just go into the, okay, how is this? Be curious, right? How is this done, right? And that gives you the then back engineering that into, okay, how you present it to a user, how you present it to a developer, how you present it to an executive, right? You need to know the details of how it's done, and then translating into words or into kind of messages that are tailored to the audience you're addressing. That gives you the power of, being able to speak across the spectrum of people, and at least look knowledgeable. Even if you're not like detailed, or hands-on code, you still know how it's done, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I'm sure maybe you've either heard of it or you've seen it, but the TV show Ted Lasso, he talks about be curious, and sort of use that as a mantra. I think if I'm understanding what you're saying, that the curiosity is the sort of first part where you seek to understand something, the new waves that are coming, and as you develop a learning around them, you become more successful. Even if you're not confident, you can become competent.
Exactly. And again, there's the other thing is being humble. There are things you don't know, and that's fine, right? Again, it's like the process of how things are built without having the details. You're gonna always take a task that you don't need to do it. You need to understand how it's done. You understand the skills that take to perform that particular task, right? So you understand the value it has when it moves downstream to someone else who's going to be consuming that service, that product, that idea, that phone, whatever it is that's built, right? So it's just kind of that curiosity, and then being humble and understanding you're not going to be the best at every single stage of the process, but you at least understand how it's done, right? What it takes.
Right. Absolutely. I can think of, just maybe a little bit of a counterexample, but this idea of learning and trying and kind of developing yourself. I had an opportunity when I was at Facebook where I was asked to present to basically like 5 executives of the company and, 20 directors and a bunch of employees. And I felt so overwhelmed and lost. I prepared, but ultimately I felt like I hadn't prepared enough. And ever since that presentation, I've never wanted to feel that way again. So I was kind of curious, like for you, have there been projects or experiences that really changed, that you can really think, I remember this one time that changed how you approach your work, that gave you new perspective?
Yeah, there's one that was a very defining moment of the relevancy of what we do, right? So I was 2 companies ago we were building infrastructure, right, for telecommunications companies in worldwide. I actually built clouds, private clouds in places like the Vatican and Nepal. So it was everywhere, literally. Obviously, other less exotic places too, right? And one of these less exotic places, right? That's when I came to the realization of the importance of what we were doing. We were always in the telco world very proud of kind of the 5 nines reliability, right? All these things needs to be up, right? And you kind of, when you detach yourself from the problem you're solving, it's like, okay, this is kind of a mandate, and you don't pay a lot of attention to it, right? At that point, that telecommunication company we were working with told us why. And it's, well, my 911 system is running on this infrastructure, right? So this is no longer like if you're down, if you have an outage, things are, it's going to be costly, your customers are going to be, you're going to be happy and whatnot. It's literally lives at stake, right? You're saving lives, right? And this is, well, okay, this is not a game anymore. So the rigor, and I get it. And now it's a little doom, like this is why these things are thought through, and they're rigorous, and there's a lot of testing, and there's a lot of. It's a very complex environment that, once again, you don't know how it's done. You kind of take for granted, right? You call 911 and it's working, and you post whatever. Okay, there's a lot of work behind making that work. That was a realization of, okay, what I do, the software I create, the services I'm building, are effectively, right, saving lives, or potentially be saving lives, right? And not that I had to do anything differently, because we were building it already with kind of that attention to detail and making sure everything was right. But it gave me like, okay, yeah, these are the things that are happening. This is not dollars. Dollars come and go, lives don't. So that was a very defining moment. And then since then, like everything we do now at PagerDuty, that reliability we like to bring to our users. Not that we always compare to that. It's not that I have that in mind all the time, right? But it creates a habit of building things that are reliable, and there's a reason that you might or might not know behind it. And at the end of it, there might be, those reasons might be that with that gravity, right? Of whether that's dollars for a small company or a large company, or effectively something even more personal, right?
Did you find that once you found out that it was supporting the 911 system, that you felt like an increase of stress or personal accountability, or were you able to manage that?
In a way, because again, we knew the system will hold, right? We knew we were doing all the testing, so it was more of it didn't change the way we did things. It changed probably the way we felt about it in a way, right? The way this is as I said, this is beyond the game. This is not that I can code and can do whatever. This is you need to. There's a process for a reason, and if you ever thought about taking any shortcuts, this is why you shouldn't, right? This is kind of that gravity. So I don't think it really it consolidated an idea of the work that you're doing is relevant. But yeah, you don't want to be thinking about that pressure every time, especially when something's not going right. But create the processes to make it right? To just take the steps so it's important. So in a way, it did kind of wait on how I build things, right?
I was talking to he's head of customer success at a company called Deal. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned that he felt like, I think he said the quote was something like, it's not his quote, but he said that pressure was a privilege. And I thought that was great because, when you're working on something important, it aligns everybody in the right direction. You really care about what you're doing. And, it makes your work, your role, your job more important.
Yeah. You know what? I felt like, I didn't feel like, something's going to go wrong, right? Because everything like the process of building this kind of systems, this kind of services are so thorough, right? That it kind of gave me a validation. Okay, we're good, right? Because we put the work, right? And again, it's the validation of the process, how it's built. But yeah, you carry that over to the next problem up. In this case, you knew what was going on. Some cases you don't. When you try to make assumptions, instead of doing kind of or not making assumptions at all, this is just another system that we're building, that we're setting up, whatnot. You always think about, what if there was a service like that 911 that was going to run in this system? So once again, learn from how you build those and build them with the same reliability, consistency, resilience, etc. Right?
I love that. I think that's really cool. We talked a little bit about at the beginning how you've helped grow and develop the team in Chile, but also sort of globally. I would love to hear from you. Because I think all of us are working remotely, whether it's hybrid, full time, a couple days a week here and there. But like building a strong team culture and working across time zones, I feel like can be quite a challenge unless you have some good approach to it. So what are some of the things that are key for you?
So for me, we hire as diverse as possible for starters, right? Because that's going to give you it's going to force you and your team to incorporate ideas from different backgrounds. And when I say diverse, I'm not just talking about classic, race and gender and orientation and whatnot, generational diversity, right? Folks that are older, younger, from different backgrounds, etc. Location, geographic, diversity, even studies or competencies diverse. That strengthens the core culture. When you find that common ground with people that are very different, that common ground gets it's stronger, right? That core gets stronger, and then you have the breadth and the visibility into out of the many dimensions that these diverse people will bring. You're going to take the range is stretched to the top of the person who has the highest, attention to detail. That's what's going to drive what good looks like. That's what's going to set the bar for your teams, right? So we try to always hire as diverse as possible. And then there are tricks here, especially when it's, time zones, etc. It's like, it's not always about work. You need to get to know the people that you're working with. You need to have the open mind to talk to them in the same language of things, or in a language they understand. Give you a very, very silly example, right? There's a lot of analogies of football when we talk here in the US, right? Oh, I'm the quarterback of this account, or I'm whatever, right? Outside of the US, football is a complete different game. It's a complete different sport, right? I didn't know what a quarterback was until I came to the one day I did, but until I came to the US. So the way you force people to talk in a broader vocabulary or find those analogies that folks will understand better broadly, right? That's also something that you instill into your communications, and you drives that culture as well. Like, okay, it's inclusive, it's diverse, the core is always stronger, and it gives you visibility into all the edges of the different dimensions of the people, the competencies you're developing.
Right. Yeah. I think, going back to a point that you made early on when we were talking about Tokyo, I think when you enter a place that is different enough that it causes you to sort of almost like wake up.
Yes.
I think when you're working with teammates who have different perspectives that aren't just exactly the same, that they speak a little bit differently, slower, faster, more intelligently, sloppier, whatever, it kind of adjusts how you perceive everything.
Yes. You feel it. I started to manage a team of support professionals, younger than me. There's a lot of people younger than me these days, anyway. And they would.
I'm getting there too. I'm getting there.
They would communicate with emojis, right? And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna change anything. It was fun. It is fun. Still do it. It is fun. It is how they build that culture. I'm not going to be disrupting any of that. I will learn. I will put my emojis there, and I will try, and I will accommodate to that way of thinking. It is that perspective of that idea of it doesn't need to work exactly the same for everybody. You will find naturally, if you have the intention and you have the will and the people, you will find a way you communicate and you agree, no matter how different it is. You'll need to find that way. Because again, this is what I told the other day, some of my folks, okay, this is maybe my customers are also communicating emojis. Maybe my customers are also communicating this other way, right? So who am I? Let's find a way to, okay, how do you like my tone? How do you want my communication to be? And let's figure out how we can adapt, right?
Right, absolutely. I talked to a customer success manager, support manager today. Her name was Laura, and she mentioned that her team they're all quite a bit younger, and she herself is a millennial, and she was describing it all herself this way, but she was saying she loves to include GIFs or images in a lot of her replies, and she found that it just lightens the mood a little bit. And she really pointed out what I thought was very interesting is that most customer support teams do not do this, and so it's one way of differentiating them. I think another one that I've seen recently, and it's a little different, it's more of a cultural thing, but I've noticed that with the teams that we have that are more European, they tend to like to do direct messages more often. And some of the folks in America, they're often more comfortable with groups and more open communication. And we kind of have to be like, hey, we really need to talk all together, but it takes some coaching.
Yeah, it does. And again, I've born in and raised in Madrid, moved to the US about 15 years. I've experienced that very same thing, right? On the way to communicate. There's one of the dimensions of this communication is directness or conflict. We are okay with verbal conflict in my hometown, right? Like, I can say, "Oh, Scott, why did you do this way and whatnot?" I don't need to involve your manager. You don't need to involve my man. I don't need to let anybody go. We will just figure it out. And again, in general, I don't like to generalize too much, but in general, that's normal, right? And then in some other parts of the world, it's not, right? It's
Right.
It's even, not great, not a great practice because it's not common, right? So figure that out before you actually need to exercise some of that communication. And it's just like incidents, right? During peacetime is where you figure out how you're going to be reacting when things don't go smooth. Because during wartime, you just need to be focused on, or during a conversation that needs to be resolving an issue, you're going to have to exercise that pattern of that you have agreed on, right? The upfront contract on, hey, this is how we're going to be talking to each other, right?
Right. So you used the word exercise a few times. I'm gonna go in a little bit of a different direction, but you've worked at a pretty senior role at a high stakes, fast growing, great business, and you also presumably have a life outside of work. I'm not a big believer that it's easy to have like balance, like everybody talks about. But I think you can have personal fulfillment as well as, employment and fulfillment there. How do you approach those kinds of things?
It's and you brought up the exercise. It's a habit you exercise, right? Again, work is work, and no matter how important or relevant, again, I talk about the services that you provide, the relevancy, the pressure that you get, regardless of where you are, you're going to have a degree of pressure. You're always going to feel that pressure differently, right? How you are engaged and involved in your work, etc. But you need to learn how to draw the line, right? On, okay, this is me at work, and this is me at home, right? It's a different type of pressure. I have a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, right? It's a completely different type of pressure. You still get kind of the same feeling. It takes 100% of your time as well, right? But you need to be able to draw that line, and you learn how to do it. You need to exercise habit you create, right? And again, you need to force yourself to draw that line and to, especially when you're working remotely at home, that your office and your refrigerator are too close, and sometimes you're having dinner and then you go to the office and then you get out of the office and whatnot. So force yourself to kind of imagine you're commuting, right? Imagine you leave work and you leave work, and those norms need to be respected, and there's something going on. And don't pick up a call at 10 p.m. because there's no need for it. Right. This is, people would usually work. And if you prepare your teams and your kind of processes in a way that you can accommodate that, then just don't do it. Let the process run. Let the process be. And if the process doesn't work, then you'll change it next time. But, in the morning, or whatever, you don't need to do it on a Sunday at 1 a.m. Right? That doesn't need to happen unless it's by design that you are on call, that you are working on that at that time, right? So
right,
it's an exercise. You need to continuously, remind yourself that, hey, am I at work? Am I with my family, right? And it can be both, right?
I have a 12, a 10, an 8, and a 6-year-old. So I'm probably going to, after this call, I'm going to message you and say, like, how do I handle the 12 to 17-year-old? I bet you have some great experience.
I don't think there's a one size fits all, and that gives us enough for another 2 or 3 episodes of the podcast for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So how about in the world? You mentioned this much earlier. There's been these shifts, I should say. These emerging technologies, these kind of bubbles. We've described them in lots of different ways. Right now, I think we're in the age of AI.
Oh, yeah.
So what are you excited about in that category, specifically when it comes to your everyday work, your business? What are you looking forward to?
So the key, no matter how cool the technology is, right? Oh my God, it's just impressive. Are you doing this now? Whatnot? Is the outcome you're trying to get, right? Is the gift of time back to people, going back to the conversation we just had about, okay, this is work, this is family. You will be freeing up time that you can allocate to something different than the toil, that repetitive task, etc. Right? Let's get it right. Let's fix those instead of you thinking about something important. That let's not delegate that to the AI. Let's keep that kind of mind fresh and do that ourselves as human people, and then get the AI to do some of those repetitive tasks that don't add value, right? And the gift of freeing up time is what excites me the most out of the technology. Then again, there are risks on using it wrong, perpetuating biases or making decisions or understanding. That's why going back to the importance of understanding how it's built, understanding how you come up with a, even if it's the basic use case, the ChatGPTs of the world, where you're going to come up with a text. Okay, how's that done? Why is that done that way? Right? Is there a better way? Always challenge the process. Always be curious to don't take that for granted, and understand that there's hallucinations and there's all the types of problems that are in the model, and participate in building better models, right? So that's kind of what is. But yeah, definitely the AI is not only kind of a shift similar to in size or in relevancy, similar to what we've lived in the past, but it's always, they always go much faster than the previous one, right? So the pace at which we are adopting and innovating and making this happen is great. It's great to see. It's great to witness. It's great to participate on. It's not new, by the way. People, we've been doing this for some time, machine learning, etc. So it's like now it exploded, but the investment that has been going on and ensuring this is done the right way, it's actually quite exciting. Yeah.
I particularly like the freeing up time aspect of things. I think so far I found it's able to help, as an example, like any video call that we do now, it used to be that you'd have to write notes. Now you can have an AI afterwards analyze it and pull out the best things, anything I missed. I feel much more organized. I'm still not very organized, but I can feel more organized. I think the area, going back to our kids, I am hopeful one day that there is like a personal AI that can just schedule my healthcare appointments, my sports for my kids, and then I can just go and enjoy the sports rather than being worried that I forgot to sign up for them. I think there's a lot of these minutia details in our lives that do distract and make both work and personal that I'm excited about on the freeing up time aspect of things.
Yeah, and that's the other thing you mentioned, right? Is both personal and professional, right? And it will affect everything. Now, is it going to replace people, and are we going to be working nothing at all, just enjoying and what AI figures out of everything else? Like, that's probably not even something we want, right? As a race or as a species, right? But the fact that it's taking all those things that you're not good at, like a human brain is not good at, taking those and just making it, helping you kind of enjoy the moment, right? We need to again be mindful that when we free up that time is allocated in something that really brings us the value we expect. Otherwise, invest like a return of investment, right? Hey, you free up time to enjoy the sport, don't spend that time not enjoying the sport, doing something else, right? So that's
just doing more work, right?
Again, once again, it's a mindful, it's a conscious, investment. You need to do it. You have time now. You need to do it there. For folks who believed pre-AI and post-AI, that might be easier. But folks like, are born with AI, they might not know what was the prior. So the value of that time might be slightly different, but we will see through, and it will be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about customers for a minute. You mentioned early on that you had a lot of experience technical with product innovation, talking with customers, being a customer of PagerDuty. I think building products that are really great is actually quite a big challenge. And I think we're all trying to take, either build new products or make the products we have better. How have you learned to identify what could be great for customers and then to get the feedback from them?
The one thing that I've the privilege of doing is I'm customer zero for my products. I use my products. I used them in the past as a proper customer, paying customer, I would say, not proper customer, but paying customer. And now I use them internally for my teams, right? I use our automation suite, or I use our operations platform. And my customers, again, because I've been in this many different roles in the software industry, I understand what are the problems that we're going through. Going back to the earlier part of our conversation, people have very similar problems, regardless of their industry, regardless of it's time, it's that toil that drives 57% of the time of a developer is invested in repetitive tasks that could be avoided. Okay, can we do better, right? Can we free up that time and invest in something that's more meaningful from a professional standpoint to those developers? I've been a developer. I've been there. I know what is, again, I need to spin up another virtual machine somewhere, and I need the same process, and you just go through the list of things that you need to do. Time is that. So I'm able to kind of have the conversation about not the product and the features, but the problem we're trying to solve, right? And that usually spans across, all the domains of, okay, how do you manage people? Okay, how do you transition from one software to the next? How do you make those migrations, etc.? So it's a matter of talking to peers around common problems that I've seen and we've experienced and I've solved with my products. And some of them I might be still to solve with any products, right? So is that peer-to-peer conversation where we get most of the feedback, and then you end up talking the same language because you're still kind of suffering or experiencing the same challenges that our customers. That gives, at least I think it gives me a little bit more credibility when I go in there and I know what I'm talking about because I've been an operator and I've been there. And it's a more honest conversation as well. Like overselling product does what it does, configuring it, and then surrounding it with the right processes. The product is just a part. It's the process and the people that also matter, and you can't really sell those, right? You need to build those around that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think what really resonates is this idea of like finding and identify the pain, the problem with the customer, and actually just talking to them about it, understanding them and hearing them. It goes back to that sort of aspect of, the diversity of team. If you have a diversity of ideas, you talk to different potential customers within maybe a small group or whatever, you're going to probably find a great product to build there. Yeah. And then you just have to work with them, right?
Oh yeah, and in this case, we're talking to like large enterprises in the world, and this is a partnership. This is not like a transaction that you use this, and it's like, okay, how we grow. We have plans and strategy built in large organizations for the next 3 to 5 years, right? Okay, how we partner. That's kind of what the real feedback is. If you tell me, oh, I want this blue, or I want this other color, okay, sure, right? We can make it flexible, but is it really solving a problem, right?
Yeah.
Or are we trying to anticipate together what are the problems we're going to have in the operations world, and how we're going to be mitigating outages and reducing the time to health? How we're going to be using AI, for instance, to, okay, can I fix a problem before it becomes a problem? Can I fix it at symptom? Can I fix it at alert? Can I anticipate, hey, this is what's going to happen because, hey, you're having the symptoms and you're going to have whatever is going to happen in the next range of time? Can I anticipate all of those things? We need to partner with our customers to be able to make that a reality. And that's the beauty of the kind of the conversation. It's not that transactional anymore. It's like, okay, where we want to be in 5 years, right? And there's going to be an alignment there. There's always going to be obvious.
Right. One final question for you. It's more along the lines of, I know you mentioned you're getting up there in age. You still have many at-bats, opportunities, games, matches, whatever ahead of you. But when you think about like a piece of advice that you'd probably give your son or one of your children as they enter the workforce or they look to find their first path into their career, what's that one piece of advice that you think is super important?
And I think we touched on it, right? Don't lock yourself into a decision you make, right? You make a decision today that looks clear a few years from now, might not be the right decision. You might rethink it. So be open to revisit your decisions and change gears, right? Go somewhere else, do something different, take a risk, right? Do, side movements. Doesn't need to be a promotion all the time. You can try different industries, different places, etc., because that's how you build kind of your competencies, that you define what you're going to like at any given time. And that goes for for as long as you're working or even beyond. Just try different things as you feel them, without going too crazy, but try the different things as you feel them. And then the other thing I always say is put yourself in a position where you can choose, where you're not forced to be in a company that you don't like, be in a role that you don't like, always put yourself in a position where you can choose. This is what kid is now about to start college, and that's what I've been telling him for the last few years. Okay, you need to apply to colleges, put yourself in a position where you can choose where you go, rather than I can only go to one, right? So that goes on in life, and it's how to get there. It ties with a lot of the things we've said. Okay, be curious, understand, grow in different competencies, meet different people, have an open mind, talk to people from different parts of the world, understand their problems. That curiosity drives that putting yourself in that position too.
Awesome. Those are great closing thoughts, Arturo. Thank you for spending the time with us today and sharing your great thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. And it's been a great time.